Hello, and welcome to the Looking Place podcast, where we seek to guide our listeners through a journey of discovering your intrinsic power. I'm T.
And I'm Mel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. What's going on, Mel?
All right. I did something interesting last night.
Okay, do tell.
It was last minute notice.
Mm-hmm.
And Maurice said, Dr. Umar is in town.
Okay.
And he said he's speaking tonight. It was at 8:30. And in my mind, I was thinking, I did think Dr. Umar could be long-winded. Yes. And normally I'm in the bed between 9 and 9:30.
Right.
So
real mental process.
Yes. I started thinking that. And then plus it was a full moon and I was kind of feeling the effects of it.
Yeah.
And I remember Maurice coming in the kitchen. I was at the table on the computer and he said, "You're not going to try to back out, are you?"
Don't flake.
Exactly. I said, no, I'm going.
Yeah.
I went.
Yes.
Had a wonderful time.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I was so our spirits were so fed.
Okay.
They had good music.
Okay.
They had some rappers. They had a dancer there who was twirling fire.
Okay.
Yes, they had spoken word. It was really good. And then they had all these vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, so Maurice ate some wonderful vegan food and I got some sea moss and some juice.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good. People were selling their books, services.
Okay.
So it just seemed like our souls were fed.
Yeah.
And then just with Dr. Umar, his message was really good. And he went through a lot of different topics.
Okay.
But one of the things that stuck out to me is that when he said, some of you used to be religious.
Okay.
Whether you are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And right now you might be just spiritual, but don't try to pull those people away from their religion.
Yes.
And that really resonated with me because it's something that I've been sharing with my husband. Just let people be.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their own journey.
Yes.
Their own journey.
Yes.
And we don't know what God/universe is doing with their own journey.
That part. Yes.
Yes. And one of the things Dr. Umar said is God may have somebody in church, in the mosque, in the temple to help that person through their journey in life.
Yes.
And so go ahead, Dr. Umar.
Okay.
Because that spoke to my husband.
Yeah.
And afterwards he said,
from a different source. Yeah.
Yes.
God is
yes.
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 Uh-huh.
And afterwards he said, I won't say anything else.
Okay.
He said, if people ask me what am I doing, I'll share my journey.
There you go.
But that's it. I said,
okay.
Yes. Because if people are happy with what they're doing, just let them be happy.
Yeah. And even if they're not happy,
It's just
don't
be.
insert yourself to save them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I'm diverting a little bit, but the beginning of the week, this was not about religion or Christianity or anything. I just said, it's not my job to save people. Even I used to have it my people were struggling. It's just not my job to save them.
Yeah.
And when I say save, I don't mean from a religious aspect. I'm just saying in life.
Anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just can't. I just can't because I was taking too much on me.
Yeah.
And I've been like that ever since I was a preteen.
Right.
I remember watching Apartheid. Yes. I was alive during Apartheid. I was old enough to know what was going on.
Right.
And because people are like, what's Apartheid? Younger people. So
these youngins, Gen Z.
Yes.
Love you guys.
Yes. And so I remember being about 11 or 12 watching that, crying, saying, I've got to save my people.
Feeling the plight of the world.
And I released that this week.
To when I was practicing, Christianity. And I want to be very clear. I think that every religion has merit and value and really truly an origin source. So this is not an anti-religious discussion in the slightest. If you are connecting to God through the practice of your religion, that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. Continue to do that.
Yes, yes, yes.
For me and my journey, God pushed me in another direction. And so I say all that to say, as part of the mentality that I had when I was practicing Christianity, was that whole concept: to whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
And you're blessed to be a blessing. And not to say that those things are wrong, and not to say that those concepts are inherently bad, but it did kind of invoke a sense of responsibility externally toward others that I clung to very much so, because we are both very empathetic people by nature.
Right.
So you combine that empathy with that ideology that I'm here to serve other people, and I'm here to be a blessing, and God has given me, so I must do. And I've come to discover that God doesn't require anything. God doesn't require anything but our awareness and our reverence and our acknowledgement. Because when consciousness, God, universe, takes on the physical form that is us, it's here to have a whole life experience that is unique to us. And so as I've gotten closer, there's no proximity, but as I've become more comfortable in the discovering and in the beingness, spiritual sense, I'm sharing it because it's intuition led. It's not just me and my person saying, let me do for you what you can't do for yourself, or let me teach you something that you need to know. No, if I have a discussion, which now, because just by virtue of the job that I do, being a physical therapist assistant, I'm in intimate contact with people who are very vulnerable oftentimes. And they're vulnerable because of physical pain or ailment, but also because of mental, psychological, and spiritual.
Exactly.
And so I find myself very often now having these very profound interactions and discussions with people. And I try very much to not be in my person.
Right.
And I try very much to say, okay, if God wants me to be the conduit to what this person is already ready to receive, happy to do it. Otherwise, I have no responsibility toward it. It is not my responsibility.
It's not your responsibility.
No, and that's very liberating, because I shared with you early in this kind of evolution of my journey, where I was discovering more and more the true nature of myself, the I am. I wanted everybody to hear what I was learning and what video bombing people, and you need to do this, and they're like, girl, we did not ask for that.
Right.
And I was like, but this is some good stuff. Like, how could you not want? And then God and that was a part of my process. But now it's just, I've found another level of liberty in saying, okay, I truly have no responsibility toward anybody but me. And it does not make me, it actually enhances my ability to be compassionate, because now I can look at a person with really no judgment. Ego slips in every now and then, that's fine. But I'm not judging where you are.
Right. And I love that.
So I feel no responsibility toward trying to change you.
Exactly.
No, if you have something you're ready to receive and I can be that conduit, happy to do it. But,
because it's just not our responsibility. No. We really don't know what God/universe is doing in somebody's life. And then we go and we can interfere with that.
Sticking our nose in somebody else's business.
Yes. And and I think one of the areas that it's hardest to do is when it's our own family.
Man,
especially our children.
Okay.
Because we raise our children. And we do have that responsibility to raise them.
You're my child.
Right. Yes. But then they become adults and we still want to let them figure it out.
Yeah, because they're not yours. They're not yours. Yeah. No, you've been given charge of them. You were the vessel that brought their physical form into the world. They're not yours.
I've been guilty.
Yeah. No, I think we all have, honestly.
Look, kids in their 20s.
Yeah.
Let me But now I've learned.
Yes.
And one of the things I also get too is when we too much of a lioness for our kids.
Yes.
Then their confidence can't grow.
Yeah. We will quite literally arrest their own development.
Yes.
Inserting what we know to be best.
What
our
we think,
wisdom.
Yes.
You know, I went through that, so you don't have to go through that. Well, who says you don't have to go through that?
Exactly.
As I reflect, matter of fact, my oldest son's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Sean. Mommy loves you.
Sean.
Turns 27 today.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
But, as I reflect on his journey and, obviously these milestone events that we call birthdays or born days that we reflect that this is the day that I came into my physical form.
Right.
And I was reflecting back on his journey, from being born and up until now. And I'm just so grateful that although I have not been a perfect mother, I don't know that there is one, but, I used to glean upon the earlier years of raising him and his brother as me just being just such a mess. And I'm like, there's so many things I thought I messed up and got wrong. But then I look at this person that's before me and he's just so magnificent. How could I ever say anything went wrong? Right? And so with all of the intentions that I've had toward him and all of the good advice and guidance, I've quite peacefully now, just recently, settled into this space where if he requests an insight or an opinion, I'm glad to offer it. But I can just sit back and enjoy being a witness to his journey and knowing that the God in me is the God in him.
Yes.
And he's doing well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good feeling?
I just recently got into this space.
Yes.
It's so much better over here.
Yeah.
But I had to go through the other stuff to get here. And so,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think about our parents, how they were looking at us and I grew up in an era, there's a couple decades between us, but
you would never know it.
I grew up in an era where I remember I initially wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
And my dad said no. He said go in the medical field.
Okay.
I grew up in that era where I just did what my dad said to do.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going into the medical field. Initially, I thought I want to go to medical school.
Okay.
So, and everything I do, I volunteer.
Okay.
Like I want to see. Yeah. So I volunteered with some physicians. I said, this is not it. They don't spend time with the patients and they're in and out. I knew that I wanted to connect with my patients.
Right.
Then I thought about dentistry. So I went and volunteered with the dentist and they're not present to what's going on. Oh, Anita, what is that? I remember learning all this stuff. And so it kind of catapulted me on my own journey to learning more just to know that the mind I didn't even understand anything about the mind other than especially in PT school, what I was taught about the brain, the mind, and even that has changed. The brain regenerates itself.
Yeah.
What? I was taught that once it was dead, that part of the brain was dead. So just kind of, and science is always evolving.
Right.
And just we're growing and we're learning. And so I think sometimes when you understand things about what's going on with you, that's very helpful.
Right.
Because a lot of people have no idea.
Right.
And I think even too, this is kind of like off the topic a little bit, but I just think getting help with trauma.
Yes.
That there was no word for it when I grew up.
Right.
It was just like things happen.
Right.
Now there's a word for it. And so people are getting help.
Okay. Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. People are getting help, but they had to kind of learn that, but maybe that's what that is.
And it depends on, I guess, just me kind of thinking out of my mind. I think it depends on where you're at in your journey, because there is a part of the journey for me that there was a very much a learning process or even an learning process. And I've just kind of in the concept of time, I've come to this understanding for me personally, my personal journey. I no longer, for the connection that I'm looking for toward God, I no longer am required to learn anything. And so there are things to learn, like as far as my career, I love learning things that are related to physical therapy. I can nerd out on anatomy. But when it comes to this part of my journey, the discovery of the true self, the nature of the essence of who I am, now I understand this is the space where there's no learning required. There's no, and I can't teach it. And it wasn't learned, it was discovered. And so I think that's a different part of the journey. And so, yes, to your point, there is a part and there is a space where learning or unlearning is required, helpful, applicable. But for this space, you have to let go of the concept that there's something that you need to be taught.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm with
Okay.
you
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that, but I was just thinking in
If
terms
that's
of
your journey.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was just thinking in terms of like
Yeah.
the ego,
Yeah.
subconscious, you know,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
just don't know like what is all that stuff? What does that mean? And so when you say the ego mind and you know, just yeah.
And
So
I don't even know if I could effectively, even help someone on a conceptual level to understand, like, I know when God gave you this ideal of us starting this podcast, I struggled so much in my personhood and saying like, I don't know that I can teach this to anybody. It's just by the grace of God that it's settled in my spirit. I don't know how to teach this. I'm not the most well-read person. I didn't read all of the books and listen to all the gurus. And I quite literally don't know. Somebody be like, oh, you don't know such? No, I don't. Or you didn't read such? No, I didn't. It's just a discovering that God and intuition have brought me toward. I don't really like, if you tell me to explain something, I might not be capacity to do it.
It's beautiful because it sounds almost like for you, it was just like, boom.
It kind of was.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's I think
beautiful.
that's the journey that I came for.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why I said now I can resonate and understand and beautifully accept that I can be in interaction with anybody in any part of their journey, and it's all good.
And it's all good.
Yeah,
Yes. I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, wonderful. We covered a lot of.
We did. I feel like we could just talk forever and ever, but we know we got to keep these episodes to a reasonable time.
I know exactly. Yeah,
we got things to do. So hopefully, something that you and I have shared is, something that a person might be ready to receive in their spirit to help again, just guide and point them toward. We all have this power. Every last one of us.
Yes, we do. We all have it. Exactly. I love it. We all have it.
Yeah.
It's not something that one group has over another group. Yeah, we all have it. So, well, wonderful. Well, if you have any questions or thoughts or, you want
to be a part of the community? Let's build community, guys.
Yes.
That's what I want to do.
Yes.
Let's learn and glean from one another.
Yes, because that's what it's all about. So. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mel. And thank you all. We appreciate you for joining us at The Looking Place. Peace.
All right.